Hi there, welcome to another rousing discussion for the A-Team, our curriculum resource project for EDF 5705. So week 3 this week, we've got 4 articles to discuss. Let's get cracking.
This one touches on issues of homosexuality and teachers' ability to convey that to the students. And it starts off by stating that 5-year-old Tommy announced that when he grows up he's going to marry his best friend Sam, and then it's the question of can Sam and Tom get married. The central idea of this reading is about kids being comfortable within their own selves, and when they're asking about different aspects of homosexuality, that the teacher doesn't shy away from that, and that they're actually engaging the child.
That really speaks to me, and the idea that we must make sure that while they're at school and hopefully while they're at home as well, that they're comfortable and happy and safe within their own skin.
Put the onus on the teachers, like figure it out for yourself. Are you uncomfortable about this because you're uncomfortable with homosexuality? Like is the problem you, not necessarily the kids? Is that why you're having trouble touching it? So that was it. Invited us to look at ourselves and our views on it. The way they organized a discussion about it, and then had the parents say, "Come, we're gonna have it at 10 a.m. Come if you want to. If you have any issues or questions, please call me. Let me know, and we'll work it out." So it's all about like getting everyone involved. It's not forcing your view.
It sounds like they're cutting off any potential problems at the past as well by proactively informing parents.
Yep.
We're going to begin a discussion about this. Should you have any issues, now is the time.
During the conversation, the teacher should explain that her goal, or his goal, is for the children to grow up feeling comfortable with themselves and each other, accepting who they are and who they are becoming in all areas of their development.
With an article like this, these sort of things pop up, and I'm always blown away by how much we're going to have to carry on our shoulders as we sort of head forth into this teaching profession.
The interesting thing with the Hannon article, as opposed to the other ones that we've read this far, is that it actually had 3 separate sections in it. And each one was dealing with, ideas of just assumptions, actually, like stereotypes in a lot of ways, and the ways they were dealt with them. In the first article, it dealt with the question of race, and what good ways would be to help get children comfortable in it. There were a few thick quotes from there, like not my favorite ones, but like, "Oh, you can't be the princess. There aren't any black princesses." Oh, okay. Like, it was just really intense for that. The second one was about a Lego town and how there was becoming an elite of people who played with it all the time. And they got to control who got what, and they'd set them off with things, and they would have more cool pieces. And so the idea with that, they got rid of it, and then told them, we're only going to put it back in when it's fair. And so we have to discuss what fairness is. What does owning mean? What does power mean? And why do these people have it? And what are the rules? The last one, which the article was all named for, "Food is not for play," was about a guy seeing a student, Anna, who was adopted from somewhere in Asia, China I believe, and she was just, food was precious. She lived in a third world area, so like a young boy found out really early that he could get a rise out of her by pretending to try and take her food. And the really big section of that was really important was he had a station set up where kids got to learn about measuring by playing with rice. And she was horrified. And it just came to the idea, like, we're talking about eat all your food at lunch, glue this macaroni onto a plate. My favorite one, though, had to be the race one. I've worked in a bunch of different areas, and one of them was in Korea, where everyone was the same. And I had a student who didn't want to read a part in a book because the character was black. And that's just something I wasn't ready for when it first happened.
Wow. So when I'm not at uni, I work in before and after school care, and we have lots of shared toys. And your example, the example in the article about the Lego town is something that I've seen firsthand. I've been forced to ban kids from certain toys because of their attachment, or their excessive attachment to it, and their perceived right that the toy is theirs, and that only them and their small little cadre of friends are allowed to play with it. So this article for me has given me a few strategies that I can then use to perhaps diffuse that situation and to educate my students in my after school care program about fairness and sharing.
Early in my teaching career, I might have told LaRonda we were all equal and we were all the same and left it at that. But much has changed, and I've learned that it is part of my job to help students to learn how to discuss issues of race. This is huge because it just shows so many different ways to try and get students to kind of click that they're the same. They have a bunch of activities that you can do, and it became this teacher's mission to get people comfortable with the idea of race and how we're all the same.
Through the discussion of these two articles, I have something that would link them both together, and that's Miles Morales, the new Spider-Man from the Ultimate Universe by Bendis, who is Latino, African American, and gay. So that would be an interesting thing to bring into the classroom and see the students' reactions.
And discuss the reactions.
And discuss, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. I'm reminded of the Fleener and Booker article from our first submission.
The article I did was Lyman, Girls, Worms and Body Image, which discussed gender stereotypes. And there was things in this article where the teacher decided to get the boys to write facts about the girls and the girls to write facts about the boys. And just to see, what their opinions of each other was or what the gender roles were in their households. So it was very interesting.
So one of the cool parts about that article that I feel worth mentioning was whenever the girls were running around screaming away from a boy carrying worms. And it was just another stereotypical response, and it was just, and she got them to collect worms, and two of the girls showed up with rubber gloves that they got from the lunch lady, and she made them take them off, and they had to go get them. And eventually it was all about getting them comfortable with that aspect, and they were at the end.
And the next part was for the class to actually feel gendered discrimination. And by that, she made an old-fashioned day where girls had to come to school with skirts that went below the knee, and the boys had to wear, like proper collared shirts and everything like that. And they were discriminated based on their sex. So, like, the boys could go and do the fun science experiments. The girls had to stay and work on the handwriting.
My favourite quote is coming from an activity that Lyman made the students do when they had to write what they thought an advertisement was about. And Stephanie chose a cigarette ad with the message, "A taste for the elegant," and the picture of a thin, sophisticated woman in a white pantsuit and high heels. Her commentary read, "A taste for the elegant is what it says on my poster, but it can't be a taste for the elegant because cigarettes don't taste good. Cigarettes are bad for your lungs."
Provides a really nice overview as to the humanities curriculum with respect to citizens. There are two views that are contrasted there, the minimal and the maximal view that McLaughlin describes. The minimal view is essentially, you can compare it with the lower forms of learning in Bloom, sort of the remembering, kind of rote learning about the role of government, the judicial process and all that sort of thing, whereas the maximal approach, it's more broader, it's more inclusive. This generation of young people will also unavoidably be crucial decision makers in terms of stewardship of the earth. But I like this quote because it reminds us that our role as teachers is essentially caretakers of the next generation. Central ideas for the week. Any thoughts?
Identity, diversity, and stereotypes.
Yeah, I think we can agree all the articles touched on them in one way or another. I mean, the Tug-Ball article is probably more descriptive than prescriptive, but certainly the other three, definitely culture, identity, discrimination perhaps.
And it also, all of them had, or at least the three, for that one it wasn't so much the same, but they had like, look at yourself. And what are your views on this?
So sort of looking inwards, sort of self-evaluation.
Yeah. Just so you're not surprised when it happens.
Yeah, well I think we're always encouraged in this unit to look at how we teach diverse learners.
Yeah.
So I think this week especially the articles have been particularly relevant to that concept. And I know personally, and I'm sure I can speak on behalf of all of us, that I've picked up some ideas for how to broach these culturally and politically sensitive topics for a broad audience to sort of foster that community spirit in the classroom.
my resource for this week runs in the same theme as the Cahill article, Can Tommy and Sam Get Married? So this is a picture book. It is titled Mom and Mum Are Getting Married, and it's designed to kind of show young kids how there's different family structures, that there's not necessarily just one norm of a heterosexual relationship, and it introduces them to the topic of gay marriage as well.
The resource I picked coincides with the Hannon article on race. While I was reading that article, it made me think of Jane Elliott. And so my resource is a YouTube video about Jane Elliott doing her blue eyes versus brown eyes classes. That way teachers can have a look at it and kind of decide how they would like to tackle this issue themselves, give them a bit of information.
So I've got two additional resources for this week. The first relates to the Tudball article. I mentioned before that I'm a big proponent of instilling financial literacy in primary school children, and the article reminded me of a news article I read a couple of months ago about an after-school program being piloted in Sydney, where the students are encouraged to open shops and sell things. They have to rent chairs with money that they receive for doing projects. And they have to deal with real-life situations like inflation, tax increases, recessions, all this sort of thing. We're talking about 6-year-olds, and it's had some incredibly positive results. So I think that if I was to do humanities as a primary school teacher, I would introduce a program like this in my classroom. My second resource relates to the Lyman article. It's a video from Dee Madigan, who's an advertising executive. She was featured on the Checkout a few months ago. It's essentially a quick suggestion to parents that they need to begin discussing advertising with children at an early age. It mentions that children aren't able to discern between programming and advertising before the age of 5, and so they need that help from parents and also teachers to understand that advertising is designed to sell things. So it sort of demystifies it in a way.
My resource was mentioned before. It's the Ultimate Spider-Man by Bendis, and it relates to the Cahill article, the Hannon article, and the Lyman article, as it deals with gay, gender stereotypes, race. So I think, and it also relates back to
Flair and Booker.
The Flair and Booker, using that comic as a sort of a jolt for the kids, and then maybe doing some nice humanities work off that.